Hosted by Mike, the Big Cheese.
Welcome back to the Heavy Metal Mayhem Radio Show. It is Sunday, April 21st. A little chilly day here in New York. I can't wait for the spring to fully kick in. It seems like every year the weather stays colder and colder longer into the year. And our summers are getting shorter and the winters are getting longer. That's just global warming, I guess, right? All right there, Sabotage by the Grace of the Witch. John Oliva says there's another Sabotage record in him. He was working on it last year. I don't know if we're going to get it this year or next year, but you know, I'm hoping that it's more like By the Grace of the Witch Sabotage and the old Sabotage and the later era Sabotage. I wasn't a fan of those last couple of records. Thought Zach Stevens was a great singer, just didn't care for him in Sabotage. To me, John Oliva was the voice of that band. So we'll see what he gives us, and if I don't know if they're going to go out and tour with this album, or they're just going to try to hit the festival circuit, do some big shows here and there before they kind of wrap it up and call it a day again. Who knows? We'll see what happens. All right, we're going to keep the music flowing here, but we got a great show for everybody tonight. Almost the entire classic lineup of Boss Tweed is on. Scott Wood, Donny Hart, and Lance Williams. Damon Dupree's the only one because he passed away about 8 years ago. We would need the Long Island medium with us tonight to help get him on this show. But 3 out of the 4 guys, that's pretty damn good, I have to say. And we'll talk to them in about 25 minutes or so. We're going to keep the music flowing between now and then. First up, an old friend, a dear friend, Eddie Sutton, the lead singer of Leeway. He passed away yesterday. He went into hospice a couple of weeks ago. He's been very outright with his illness. He came down with cancer, I think about 5 or 6 years ago. It was in a very aggressive form that kind of spread through his whole body, and he's been fighting it. Once you go in the hospice, it's kind of over. Eddie, only a couple of years older than me, 59 years old. It's a shame. He was a great singer and a great front man, and my band Stillborn played with Leeway dozens of times over the years in the 80s, and gonna miss him. So, a little Leeway for everybody tonight. Rise and fall. we kick things off there with Leeway with Rise and Fall. We followed it up with Acid, The Day You Die. Are there two acids now? Because there's Kate's acid, because I guess she had a falling out with some of the other members of the band. Is there the acid, or just Kate's acid now? I don't know, but and right there, Sneak Attack with Sneak Attack. Great band out of New Jersey. They came out in about 82, 83. They had about a 3 or 4 year run. That comes off their first demo tape. Sneak Attack is the name of the song, like the name of the band. And they only had one real album release. That was the Born to Metalize compilation. The Megaforce put out in '84 with The Beast, Sneak Attack, Tortured Dog, and Hades on there. There were like 3 or 4 songs from each band. They were great. They had about, like I said, a 3 or 4 year run. Then they changed the name to Ether Breather. That lasted about a year or so. It was almost the entire band of Sneak Attack. And they put out, I think, 2 really good demo tapes, and they kind of disappeared too. We had Mark Mary of the band on the show about 10, maybe 12 years ago now. And I remember working so hard behind the scenes after that interview to reunite the band. All I wanted to do was reunite one classic underground metal band. And I worked so hard with them to get that to happen. And they were all talking. It looked like it was going to take place. And then it just kind of died on the vine after that. Nothing came out of it. So maybe it's time to take up another Clause Celeb and try to reunite another underground band. You know what? We got most of Boss Tweed on here tonight. So let's throw a little feeler out there and see what we can do. All right, we're going to be talking to the guys in about 10 minutes with enough time to get on 1 or 2 more songs. Our friend Christian, his band Chains and Leather, they're going to be playing at Jimmy's on May 25th. Alan Tecchio of Hades is going to step in to sing some songs with them. So how about we do a little Hades? Here's some classic Hades, Abode of the Dead.
Going on down to the house of Hades.
All right, Hades, Abode of the Dead. I'm going to play something off the Boss Tweed record, and then we're going to talk to the guys right after that. Iman in the chat was just mentioned about the guy who set himself on fire outside of Donald Trump's court case. And I have to, the guy had mental issues, obviously, but that's dedication to your cause. He believed in something. He was going to put himself on fire, and he did it, and he burnt himself to death. Unlike these college kids in these Ivy League schools sitting in their tents on the lawn on their iPads and iPhones ordering DoorDash, that's how you make your point. You burn yourself to death. You don't say you're moving to Canada and never go. You put yourself on fire. What a way to go. This is a crazy world we're living in these days, I have to tell you. I don't mean to laugh at it. It's just insane. It's just a bunch of insanity. I forgot to mention earlier, our good friend, the president of Heaven and Hell Records, Jeremy Golden, will be calling in after the interview to catch us up on everything going on with the label and upcoming releases. And maybe there's a few bands out there you want to hear that we can convince them to look into and maybe re-release their records. All right, let's do some Boss Tweed right now. The Final Conflict, and by the time this song is over, the band should be calling in.
My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
Man, how freaking good is that? Those guys were phenomenal. I wish there would have been so much more from them, but that's an old story, right? It's a tale as old as time in the heavy metal business. All right, they should be calling in about, if we coordinated all the time zones correctly, they should be calling in any minute. I see that Trouble just got a new drummer. Not even that anybody knew Trouble was still together. I think it's been about 12 years since they released a record. But let's connect the first person. I believe it's Lance. Lance, this is Mike. You're on the air live. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can.
All right,
Hey,
it's a
Mike.
pleasure to have you on here today.
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I know you were a last minute addition. I didn't know you were calling in, but I'm glad that you are because I feel like now we've got that classic core lineup together of Boss Tweed.
Yeah, that we do.
I'm so happy. And the other guys should be calling in any minute, but we can get started if you want.
Yeah, sure, that we can.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, we're waiting on Scott and Donny. They should be calling in. We got somebody calling in right now. Let me connect this person before we talk. It should be, let me see. It should be Scott. Hang on a second. Scott, this is Mike. Can you hear me? You're on the air live. Scott, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, you're on the air live. Lance is already there, and I think we got Donnie calling in now. Let me connect him.
Cool.
Donnie, are you there? This is Mike.
This is Donny. What's going on, man?
How you doing? Everybody's here right now. Lance is here. Scott is here. The only one we're missing is Damon, and we're going to need the Long Island medium to get him on here.
I know, man. That's great.
But it's a pleasure to have all three on here today. I know it can get chaotic when you're talking to three people and nobody can see each other. So I'll kind of direct the questions to each one of you, and then, whoever wants to jump in after that can and elaborate on whatever's going on. But such a big fan of Boss Tweed. I mean, I remember tape trading back in the early 80s and getting that first demo tape and being blown away by what you guys were doing. I mean, it was just phenomenal stuff. So I guess we'll start with Scott since he was there from the very, very beginning. It was kind of his thing. So Scott, how did it all come about in 1979?
Yeah, actually, I guess the best way to tell you is it started in high school. Me and a buddy, Johnny Trammell, actually, who was the first guitar player in Boss Tweed, got together right after we graduated from high school and put the band together. And they had a fellow named Charles Harrington playing drums, and that didn't last very long. Turned around and got Lance. I think you were in the band before Damon got in. Is that right?
Yeah, sure did. I came in about April of 1980.
Wow. It makes you feel old hearing those years.
I know. I tell you what, Mike, this is the first time the three of us have talked together since since the band broke up over 40 years ago. This is really cool. Anyway, and then had a singer named Bobby Lathrop. We called him Bobby London, and we were doing clubs around Fort Worth, Dallas, and Arlington, doing cover stuff, doing Robin Trower and I don't know, a little bit of Sabbath here and there, but also some cover tunes, 8675309, that kind of crap. But it wasn't long after Lance got in, and these guys are going to have to help me with the dates because I can't remember half of this crap, Damon somehow, I don't remember, Lance, how did we get Damon in the band?
Damon was hanging out with us from the time that we played Mayfest in about May of 1980. He was actually sitting on the back of the trailer when we played that show live. And he was kind of following the band. And
he was what? 16, 17 years old?
He was 17 years old at the time and wasn't even out of high school yet. And he wound up joining the band about a year later. And to tell you the truth, I can't remember how we got him in the band. He just one day appeared.
Just showed up out of nowhere.
Magically.
That's the way the best
it was
things happen.
destiny that brought. Yeah, it was that brought Damon to us.
Well, that was
I
a
just
good thing.
remember him. I remember him coming to my house actually not my house, my parents' house back then. One evening and asking that he said, "Can I join the band?" And I don't know anything, so I said, "Yeah, sure." Because then we had a 2-guitar attack, and it was going to be cool and all that stuff. So yeah, that's Mike. That's kind of how it all got started.
That's usually how things work out. And then Donny came into the fold after that. Donny, you were playing with a little band named Pantera at the time, a little unknown band of teenagers back then in Texas.
Yeah, but it was that was a high school band back then, and I had already been out of Pantera for about a year, and I just graduated high school. It was '82, end of summer '82, and a buddy of mine named Mike Bazin had seen Boss Tweed play at a battle of the bands, and they were looking for a singer, and he gave me their number. And I was greener than green. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. And I went to an audition somewhere in Arlington at somebody's house. Somebody correct me if I get any of this wrong. And I walked in, and the temperature in the room precipitously dropped about 60 degrees. And they looked around and went, "Well, let's just try this dumbass out and move on," which I accepted as a challenge with my greenness, and it actually went better than they were thinking it would, I think. And I joined the mighty Boss Tweed in the fall of 1982.
1982.
Donny, was Paul already in the band at that time?
Yes, it was the four of you.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that a guy named Paul Bowl, after Johnny, the original guitar player, left the band, I think Damon knew Paul from high school as well. Everybody except for Donny went to high school on the west side of Fort Worth at Western Hills High School. And I think Damon, after he got in the band and Johnny left, said he knows a guitar player, and that was Paul Bowl. And actually, Paul Bowl has turned into a very, very well-respected, jazz type guitar player. And I think Lance was telling me that he's writing scores for movies and stuff like that. So he's done really well. But yeah, Paul. And we kept that dual guitar attack with Paul when he joined the band, and then Donny got in, right, Donny?
That's correct.
When you talk about 1981, 1982, the band goes back before that, but it's most like I said, a bunch of teenagers playing covers. When you got serious and said we're going to write original music now, there was really such a small scene back then anywhere in the country. It was all underground still. It was starting to develop. You had Metallica coming out of the West Coast. You had bands on the East Coast starting to come up, bands over in Europe, but it was all new. Nobody knew what anybody was doing because there was no internet. There were very few fanzines and magazines back then. So, Texas, you look back at it now, like what a great scene Texas had back in the day. But you guys were so far ahead of everybody else in what you were doing. When you started writing original music, did you feel like, you were so far ahead of everybody else that you kind of got left behind at that point?
I don't know if we got, well, a couple of things. We didn't have any idea what we were doing or that we were ahead or behind anybody. I think I could speak for all guys in the band that we didn't, we were just a bunch of dipshits out there, just having fun and making more music that we liked. I think when Lance and Damon got in the band, the direction that we went in changed real dramatically, and that was reflected in the first bunch of original type of songs that we were writing. They took us in a really heavy direction. As a matter of fact, Lance, you could probably tell them a little bit about that magazine, the Heavy Metal Times magazine that you put together early on, that little mimeographed fold together thing had Lemmy on the cover. I'll never forget. As a matter of fact, I think I still have a copy of it.
Yeah, I started a little fanzine called HMT, Heavy Metal Times, and I did it for about $400. Did it on a homemade typewriter, and then I wound up producing it into almost a major magazine. As a matter of fact, they called it the Kerrang of the United States, to where I would go and fly across the United States and interview Judas Priest, Scorpions, Iron Maiden, Motorhead. As a matter of fact, I flew to New York and interviewed Venom when they came in, when John and Marcia Z brought them to the United States. And so that and Boss Tweed were happening all at the same time. And, of course, that had an influence on me, and it had an influence on the kind of music that I wanted to play. And so it definitely channeled where I wanted to take my playing, and so
thus the rest
here
of the
I
band
went.
had to go with the drummer.
The rest of the band had to follow the drummer.
There you go. Well, do you think that was a turning point for the band, where you went from being a bunch of kids, just having a good time playing music, to where you said, we could be serious about this and maybe make something of it?
No, I don't know. I can't speak for the rest of them, but I never imagined anything would come of it. We were, I don't know, guys, if you remember the practice space on Vickery Boulevard there on the west side of Fort Worth that we had. What a freaking strange shit house, mad. Half of us, I think, lived there at one time or another in that little. So, no,
yeah, it used to be an old diesel. It was a diesel automotive repair shop at one time, and we wound up converting it into a living room with a gigantic stage for the drums, and yeah, people could come and watch us play. It would hold 60 or 75 people, and so we always had an audience that we could perform our music in front of and get kind of a feel for the new stuff that we were working up, whether it was originals or cover material. As a matter of fact, it was probably the best practice room we ever had, even though it was a hellhole, yeah.
I think there were other performances there as well.
I definitely pressed there more than once.
Yeah. But, no, definitely the band took a heavier direction in 1982 from the top 40 direction that we originally were in 1980. And of course that led to some problems when we got to a couple of clubs in Dallas. As a matter of fact, I remember we played a club called the Ritz that we finally got booked at. We played about 45 minutes on stage, and they actually pulled the plug on us and fired us right there live, because that's not what they wanted to hear. We were playing Motorhead, and they wanted to hear Tommy Two-Tone.
Yeah.
They wanted us to be a top 40 band, and here we were wanting to play our heavier material. The market was not yet ready for that.
We were a heavy metal band disguised as a top 40 band.
But that was a story with a lot of
Right.
bands back then. Clubs wanted cover bands to bring people in because the music was kind of still new back then. But when did you start seeing the change take place where, the clubs were becoming more acceptable to metal bands and wanted to book you guys and hear originals?
Actually, it wasn't like a time when they started to want us. There was two clubs that I recall, Joe's Garage out on the west side of Fort Worth and the Rock Haven in Grand Prairie, that fully accepted us the way we were, because and I think it just is up to the club owners that they started to embrace, all right, well, I'm going to do what some of these crazy kids are really liking, so I'm going to bring in these type of bands. So I don't know that it was a change in the general club leadership in the Metroplex down there, but it was more of there were some specific club owners that said, "Hey, this is some new shit that I think we probably could make some money on. Probably bottom line."
Yeah, that's all it is money. It always is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would add the Loft into that as well in Arlington.
Oh God, I forgot about yeah. Oh my God, how did I forget about the
Yeah,
Loft?
Harry Sutherland's old place. Yeah.
Very soon.
Yeah, we had a buddy
Yeah,
that ran around. I got to be good friends with Lance. His name is Casey Orr. You might have heard of him from Rigor Mortis.
Rigor Mortis, yeah.
Guar. Yeah, he used to run around with us. That motherfucker was nuts.
It's a crazy stuff back then.
But that's where Casey the best is there at the loft, sitting up in the loft at the loft, eating beer glasses. It was the weirdest damn thing, but it was just the thing. It was crazy, out of control behaviors of what we always were. God, Lance has probably got a bajillion stories about Casey.
Well, that's probably my fault because I took him with me whenever I went to New York to meet Venom, and I had an interview with Cronus, and Cronus was eating a glass. Casey saw that, absolutely loved it. Metallica was there. We were all in John Z's basement. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and Casey decided that he had to be just exactly like Cronus and eat a glass. And Casey, therefore, from there on, started eating glasses. So Cronus had a great influence.
I can see. But now you guys are together. You're out playing clubs, and how does Jacuzzi Murders come about? When do you guys decide let's go into the studio and start recording some stuff and see what we can do with it?
When we finally got our parents to give us enough money. I swear to God, I think Damon's dad actually might. I don't know, guys. Am I right? Was it? We went into Pantera. It was studio. His dad's studio.
We went.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we went into Pantego Sound, and it was Damon's dad that put up the money for us to be able to record that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Daryl and Vince's dad did the engineering for us, and we laid down. I don't know how many tracks we laid down in there. Donny, you remember?
I think it was around 4 tracks.
That was good.
And I think that was it. I think we did 4 in there. And the thing I recall about that whole session was the look on Jerry Abbott's face when we showed up with our gear and a keg of beer.
Yeah. That's right. I don't know what the hell we were thinking. God, that was awesome. We came out.
Had to have the proper lubricant.
So the 4 songs that came out of that recording session were Jacuzzi Murders, Die You Bitch,
Computer's a Beast,
and Final Conflict.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you got the demo recorded. Do you decide, hey, we're going to try to shop this around, get some label interest? Where do you go after you have the demo recorded now? What's the next step for the band? Or you're not even thinking that far?
Well, I think one of the songs got on a compilation album. Lance, help me out with that one.
Okay, Dave Richards had a record label there in California, in L.A., and he put it on the Iron Tyrants compilation record.
Yep. With
some other bands, Tease and a few others. And that was the first time that Boss Tweed ever actually made vinyl. And he put Jacuzzi Murders on it.
Didn't he have a magazine too, that guy?
Yeah, he sure did. He had...
World Metal, I think.
Oh, World Metal. You are absolutely correct. Yeah, he sure did before he moved to Hawaii.
What a life having to live in Hawaii.
Yeah. But anyway, and then once we had that piece of vinyl, we finally had a chance to get on the radio in Dallas. They played us on a radio station called Q102, and that's when the Metroplex had a chance to finally hear Boss Tweed with the one song that they would play. They would not play Die You Bitch, of course, because of the wording.
Yeah.
They couldn't play it.
Yeah, they couldn't use the word die on the radio. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah.
It was, oh my God, man. I don't know if you've, Mike, let me ask you something, man. How the hell did you hear about us?
I was back in the early '80s. I used to trade tapes with back then. You used to trade demo tapes with people. I had pen pals when you used to write on pen and paper, and I had a pen pal in Texas, and he sent me a copy of. I traded him for something, and he traded me the Boss Tweed demo, and then I got the Iron Tyrant when it came out. So I've been a fan since you guys started out, and "Die You Bitch" is such a classic song, and I heard that "Die You Bitch" and "Sweet Lady" were written about the same girl, just before and after her period. Is that true?
No, but that's a good story.
Yeah, go with it, right?
It's absolutely true now.
For the right price, I'll stick by it.
No, that's fantastic. I know, yeah. Gee, I never even thought of that. And actually, Lance sang both of those, didn't you, Lance?
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sweet Lady was kind of the commercial side to maybe get us a little bit more radio play, since it was still, we needed a commercial song to try and break through as well. So Sweet Lady was kind of aimed at that.
Was there any interest from labels at the time after the compilation appearance? Did any labels reach out to you, or did you try to reach out to any of the, especially, with Lance being with the magazine and the fanzine and having contact with a lot of people, especially like with Megaforce?
Yeah, I tried to reach out to Megaforce because of my connections with HMT, and I tried to reach out to Mike Varney and Shrapnel. And Paul Bowl had left the band at the time, and they wanted us to have a 2-guitar front. And so they said, well, when you get a second guitarist worked back in, get back in touch with us, and we'll look at you again. And, of course, we never got a second guitarist worked back in.
You stood a four-piece after that.
What was that?
I was saying, after that, you guys just stood a four-piece till the end.
Yeah. I think.
Right.
Let's see. Donny, did you write Jacuzzi Murders?
I wrote the lyrics and the melody, but the rest of the music was put together in practice.
Oh yeah, that's right. And Final Conflict, I think you wrote those lyrics too, didn't you?
I wrote most of Final Conflict, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite songs. I played it right before you guys called in, too. I love the clip of Reagan in the beginning. That too.
Yeah.
That's a classic one.
Cool.
So now what happens in 1984 with the band?
Do what?
It's like it's around 1984 right now, and I think year zero you guys put out on your own, right?
Well,
I think I was out of the group by then. If I'm not, when did we go to California?
Oh, we went to California in
'83.
In late '83, and we came back and we spent 1984 in the practice room there on Vickery.
Yeah.
How long after we got back from California did Paul leave the band? I don't know who's doing this interview. Am I doing this interview?
You guys are interviewing yourselves. This is the best interview I ever had to do. I didn't have to answer questions. You guys are answering your own questions.
Dude, I can't remember. I'm not kidding anymore. Yeah, it was a unique time. I think the mid '80s. But how long after we got back from California did Paul leave? Because he wasn't involved when we went into Antigua, was he?
I think he left about 45 minutes after we got back. Give or take.
That was a train wreck. Didn't we have to like steal a U-Haul or something to get back because we were so freaking broke?
Yeah.
We
As
did.
a matter of fact.
Yes, we did.
I think all we had was
Yes,
crackers
we
and
did.
butter. That's all the food we had. We had a sleeve of saltines and some butter.
You think
Yeah, it was
about-
pretty bad.
You think about what you did back then just to get by, just to go out and play and to do stuff. And you say to yourself, I can never do that today?
Oh, I think that was best for when we were that age. I don't think I could do that now.
Oh God, no. Yeah, I'd be real hungry.
Same here.
So things start changing for the band in the mid '80s, and now that you're down to a 4-piece, you got the releases out there. I mean, when does it come to an end? A couple of years after that? I mean, what caused the band to break up at that point in time?
I think from my opinion, I think California really wrecked us. But I could have the time frame wrong. We went into the studio after California. Is that right? Yeah, of course we did.
Yeah.
Then,
I started having vocal problems in '84, and I had to take a break to get my voice back together. And I can't speak to this, but I don't think the band was ever quite the same after I took that break.
I don't. Did we, Lance? Maybe you could remember that we did some Texas rock TV show at the Loft. Was that after Donny left?
Yes.
So that was kind of like, I think that was probably right near the very end of it.
Yeah, that was in '84. That sure was.
Did you think about going with another singer at that time, or you just said, this is kind of it?
We were the most of us were altered chemically at the time, and
Got it.
I think it had a negative effect on everything. So I think it probably just imploded at that point after Donny left, and we really, I don't think we tried that hard to do much else. I remember we were trying to write a few more songs in the practice room, and maybe had a New Year's Eve party that got out of control in the practice room. And right, that's about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it.
And it all comes to an
And
end just like
we
that.
left pretty much.
But
Loaded up the coffin and
didn't some of you go on to Assassin? But wasn't there an Assassin in there somewhere?
Yeah, Donny and I were an Assassin.
Did anything come out of that, or was it just kind of a fly-by-night type thing?
That was a couple years later. After I had gotten over my bout with my voice. Yeah, but it kind of was from the ashes of Boss Tweed, but in a way, but it certainly was not created like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. We left the band or anything to start Assassin. It was Donny. You'd have to tell me how I got in Assassin Hell. I don't remember that.
Well, I'd like to, but I wasn't in the band when you got in it.
Oh, see, I'll tell you what. I can't remember half this shit, man.
What were you guys taking back then? Because it still has an effect on you. I got to write that down and see if I can get some myself.
I don't know if they make that stuff that strong anymore.
Yeah, probably not. It's a watered down world today. I mean,
I think we were Dallas Fort Worth's original speed metal band.
Got it. But it's the mid to late '80s, and the band comes to an end. This is about the time where really the scene exploded. I mean, hair metal was humongous, and different genres were taking off. You guys went your own separate ways. Did you ever think about once putting the band back together, like before the '80s ended and before the scene started to change in the '90s?
Well, I'll speak for myself. That yeah, I thought about it a couple times. It'd be cool. I moved away I moved out of Texas in '88, and there's a couple of times I think, man, it'd be really cool to go back down there and just like do a reunion show or something. But I'm telling you, once I left Boss Tweed, I don't think Lance and I spoke again until 2 days ago.
2 days ago, we had not spoken in 39 years.
Wow.
So, but there was a time right before Damon passed that, I guess when what was it, Stormbringer Records?
Yeah, about 10 11
Stormbringer
years
Records.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, when they were putting that thing together, they Damon was talking. I know he was talking to me. I don't know if he's talking to Donny or Lance about the album art, and they were putting a whole big 16-page colored booklet in the damn thing, and they were asking some guys that used to run around with Andy Banks. Was that his name? Guys, you remember him?
Yeah, Andrew Banks that helped me with the magazine. Sure was.
Yeah, right there's all that crap they wrote about us in there and the pictures and stuff. And when I got that album from Damon, I went, "Oh wow, shit, I forgot about that."
And, you bitch, they called us, so you finally got that name out there in public.
Yeah, I tell you what, Damon called me before the album got released. They were going to release it. Damon called me up. He said, "Well, what do you think we should call it? Should we call it Jacuzzi Murders?" I said, "Fuck no, call it Die You Bitch. Are you kidding?" That song right there. Yeah, that song right there, though, I think was probably the other songs like Computer is the Beast and Jacuzzi Murders and those things. They're little, and this is a dumb way to put it, but they're a little more art rock. Die You Bitch was a down and dirty Texas metal boogie song. So that was, that it on, man. That's where I would have gone, because it was gritty, it was raw, it was heavy, it had the huge Motorhead influence on it. But Lance's drumming in that thing, it had that backbeat swing to a metal song. It's like doop-da, 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 doop-da.
It's a great song. Was there any other songs that were recorded back then that never got released that you still kind of holding on to or know about that's out there?
JBL, remember that one?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. In the Garden, maybe.
In the Garden. I kind of forgot all about that. Yeah, In the Garden. That's one that I wrote. That was really I don't know. It was almost our Stairway to Heaven thing. It had all these movements in it, and Donny wailed on that one. That was a killer one. Donny singing.
I would love to hear those. I wish we could get them out there one day. I mean, now that you three guys are talking, and you could get another guitar player maybe from somewhere. Do you think there's a chance you could put it back together again for maybe like a one-off, or maybe going to a festival or something?
Well, I tell you what, I was just talking to these two knuckleheads the other day, and I said, man, it sure would be cool, because right now I think Lance is playing in a band called Headbanger there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and Rick Perry from Gamma Side is playing guitar with him. And so if there was anyone that could actually pull that shit off that Damon did, it would probably be Rick Perry.
I hope this happens. You got Lost Boys going. Donnie's got Desperados. You're all active. You're all busy. You're all playing still. So it would be great to see this. There's a whole new younger generation that's thriving on this music right now. And, there's definitely a need for a re-release of, that last record again by another label, because it was so long ago that there's so much happening since then and now.
That'd be cool for them to see a bunch of grandpas of heavy metal. What?
Well, listen, you guys got to make it happen.
See what?
What the world needs is a few more crazy grandpas screaming about the grandmas.
Oh yeah. What we used to do to the grandmas. Yeah. I'm telling you what, buddy.
Yeah, if we were to get together and do another show or a few more shows, the only thing missing this time would be the coffin routine.
Oh God.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Lance, you ought to tell him. I don't know how much time we got, but Lance, you should tell him that story.
Go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, we wound up coming across a coffin.
There you go.
We were playing a club called Mother Blues in Dallas, and we wound up picking up a coffin for $40 and a metal studded belt from a DJ that worked there. And we wound up working it into a routine where we had 6 guys that would carry me into the club, set it in front of the drums, and I would come out of it. Now, sometimes I would come out of it in a leather G-string. Sometimes I would come out of it in an SS officer's uniform.
Oh God!
You never knew what you were going to get. Now, these were the days when you could do that kind of shock rock stuff. You couldn't get away with this stuff today.
Yeah,
it's a different world we live in today. It's a sad world. It's a different world.
We were trying to offend everybody. We were equal opportunity offenders.
Offenders.
That's right.
But the funny thing about it is that when we did those kind of antics, it brought a lot of people to come see Boss Tweed because they expected to see us to do shows.
Yeah.
They wanted to see what Boss Tweed was going to do next. And it worked for us.
I've always been a firm believer that people don't go to listen to bands, they go to see the band. So, by God, you better be putting on a show.
Well, that's the way it was.
That's right.
I look at Alice Cooper. He came out with his whole getup and everything, the guillotine, Kiss, that's what people wanted to see back then. And then things started changing as music went on. And it was more like, I'm just going to wear a flannel T-shirt and get out there and play.
Yeah. I think a little bit, up here in the local area, I'm still in a band, and we're starting to notice that, the party atmosphere and the pyro and the light shows and everything are really starting to, people are wanting to see the band as opposed to just, hear the sad guys up there singing about whatever the hell those guys from Seattle sang about, or up there. So I think one of the coolest stories that I remember was us playing at the Rock Haven in Grand Prairie, and Lance coming out when they had the one guy in front with a goat skull on a silver platter or something like that. But Daryl Abbott and his dad were there because Daryl was too young to get in the club, and they had wanted to come see us, I guess, and there was he commented on it years later about how bizarre it was to see that whole spectacle, and people were standing on tables and stuff, screaming at the start of the show. So it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Daryl made the comment to his dad, Jerry, that night that Pantera had better step up their act. And I always took that as a great compliment to Boss Tweed that we inspired them in that way.
You guys had a big influence on bands, I think, than you realized. Did you think that people just forgot who Boss Tweed was as the years went on?
Oh, I don't think they ever did.
Well, obviously.
I think generally,
obviously,
yes, but the heavy metal group, the heavy metal people who were there never forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Jerry Wardens and Stewart and all those guys.
The Jeff Dennises.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You guys remember the Tombstone Factory out there on the east side of Fort Worth? Wasn't it east side of Fort Worth?
Yeah.
Tombstone Factory, Jerry Warden's place, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. It was just this big concrete building and nothing in it except the stage. and he'd have metal bands play out there. That was a badass place.
So we're going to get back together, right? There's going to be a reunion. There's going to be a Boss Tweed reunion. I want to write it down on my calendar right now, the date that it's going to happen, so I can say I have something to do with it.
We'll see if we can give you a date, Mike.
That's all I want to know.
We just got to figure out how to ring the coffin.
I hear you. Guys, I'm going to have to cut you loose in about 2 minutes because I want to play some music. I got another guest coming on in about 10 minutes after that. But, man, I'm such a big fan of Boss Tweed. The music you gave us, it still lives on with me after almost 40 years now. And I'm hoping that you do get back together, release some of those older songs, and even better, write new music and put it out there because, metal is thriving right now. That underground scene is back again. Yeah, it's not going to be like it was in the 80s, but it's still here, and people are dying for music, and they want to hear Boss Tweed again.
Well, Mike, thanks for having us, buddy. I know I appreciate it.
This was my pleasure.
You,
I felt bad for Donny. Like nobody even spoke to him.
I'm a singer. Nobody talks to the singer anyway.
He's the one, he shows up with a microphone in his hand. What the hell he got to say?
Well, listen, you're a phenomenal singer, Donny. Your voice made that band.
Donny and Lance,
thank you, man. Thank you, Mike.
It's my pleasure.
Yes, he did. We couldn't have done the album without him.
That's right. Yep. Literally. Well, guys, listen, it was a pleasure talking to the three of you. Do this. Get it back together. I'll even fly out to Texas because Texas is like, I know it's in the USA, but it's like its own separate country. So I'm going to fly out there and be with you guys. We're going to we're going to do the show.
All right, brother.
Man.
All right. You guys take care of yourselves. Have a great night, my friends.
All right, see you, bud.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Bye-bye. We got to play Die You Bitch because, we were talking about that, and it's one of the best ones. So let's get that on right now for everybody. I feel bad. Gerard from Americade was calling in. I just couldn't get to the phone. All right, here you go. Die You Bitch.
Hi, you reached Wayne Clothing. Sorry I'm not being such a caller now. If you leave me a brief message and a return number, I'll be happy to get back with you as soon as I can. Thanks.
At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. To retype your message, either because you were not speaking or because of a bad connection, to disconnect, press 1. To record your message, press 2. Are you still there? To disconnect, press 1. To record your message, press 2. Are you still there? To disconnect, press 1. To record your message, press 2.
All right, I want to talk to the guys in Boss Tweed. They were phenomenal to talk to. A great bunch of guys. I'm hoping that we can get that reunion to happen. Right there, Little Saxon from the Strong Arm the Law record. Six Form Girls. Absolutely love those guys. Don't like what happened last week with the road bass player, but they're a great band. They're out there killing it on the road. And especially with, Brian Tatler from Diamond Head playing guitar with him. I didn't know what to expect with that, because he's so synonymous with, Diamond Head, and his sound is so distinct. But it's actually working, and he helped, write songs for the new record, which I think is one of Saxon's strongest in a very, very long time. All right, let's get on Pool of Piranhas from Hammond's Road. Christian wanted to hear this. He's not in the chat tonight. He usually is here with us, but let's get that on for him right now.
Mingle with the stars, and some looks attract the ladies. So we'll invite you for a drink up to his mansion on the hillside. But girl, you better stop and think. You're gonna love him to death. Forget all of the rest. No way to fight. Pull up piranhas. When he is finished with you, take a swim in the pool. Then there's a bite. Pull up piranhas. Oh yeah. Wine and dine you. We're spending out a hot romance, like a real Harlequin novel. Passionate promises come true. Take a stroll out in the moonlight and stare into the swimming pool. You're gonna love him to death. Forget all of the rest. No way to fight. Pull up piranhas. When he is finished with you, take a swim in the pool. And there's a fight. Pull up piranhas. Oh yeah, you're gonna die. Pull up piranhas. Waiting patiently. How do I know so much about him? You see, the maniac is me. You're gonna love me to death. Forget all of the rest. No way to fight. Pull up piranhas. When I am finished with you, take a swim in the pool. And there's a fight. Pull up piranhas. You're gonna love me to death. Forget all of the rest. No way to fight. Pull up piranhas. When I am
right, that's some brand new music from Hell in the Skies, Field of Betrayal. Right before that, the Mighty Americade with Temptress. Hammer's Rule, that Christian wanted to hear that, so that goes out to him. Pool of Piranhas. Let's get Jeremy Golden, the president and chief metalhead over at Heaven and Hell Records, on the line right now. And Jeremy will catch us up on everything going on with the label, what's coming up, what he's looking to do. I know he doesn't like to reveal a lot of the upcoming releases till they come out. He wants it to be a surprise to the fans, so we won't bug him about that. But we'll try to convince him to put some, we want out there, like maybe the new Boss Tweed material. So we'll see what happens. Let's get Jeremy on the line right now. Bear with me here while I dial him up. All right. Every week I tell Jeremy I'm going to call him and never do.
Cannot accept calls at this time. We're sorry for any inconvenience this may cause.
I guess we're not talking to Jeremy today. All right. Did I dial the right number? Let me see here. You know what? I tell you what. Let's play something that he released on his label, and I'll reach out to Jeremy in private. We'll get him here. This is he put out the Attila record a few years back. I looked for Vincent Manfredi for such a long time. I finally found him. He was the bass player and singer in the band Attila. I was such a big fan of those guys back then. Carl County, who we had on about 2 weeks ago, produced that record. and I love it. So when I found them, things kind of fell apart with the interview. It didn't take place. If you guys were around back then listening to the show, it didn't happen. He reached out to me, apologized, something happened. Not to make a long story short, but a short story long. He had a lot of issues going on in his life. Substance and other stuff like that. But we finally did connect. We became good friends. We kept in touch all the time. And I kind of turned them on to Jeremy, and they put out that record. What an amazing job! So let's get a March of the Kings by Attila. Was I lying? How great is that? I love Attila. All right, let's get Jeremy back on the line now. That was my fault. I'm trying to read his number off my cell phone to down through the switchboard, and I can't see the computer with my glasses off. I can't see the phone with my glasses on. Getting old is a terrible thing. All right, let's connect him. We should have the right number in the phone right now.
Hello?
Jeremy, it's Mike. You're on the air. How are you, buddy?
Hey. Oh, not too bad.
I tried calling you a
honestly,
little. I tried calling you a little while ago, but I put the wrong number in, so I figured I'd play some songs off of some of your releases before I get you again.
Oh, well, no problem. Honestly, I actually didn't expect this.
Because I always tell you I'm going to call you, and I never do.
Oh, well, that's true. I just figured you would calling me up to, I don't know, talk about toys.
We can talk about toys. No, I thought you wanted to call into the air, talk about music and update everybody on what's going on.
Well, as far as what's going on as far as bands, what we're working on.
Yeah, I thought you wanted to talk on air about some stuff that's happening with the music. We do have to talk about toys also, but I'll get you in private after that.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I think we had a miscommunication. I thought you wanted to talk in private. I put you on the air. I'm sorry.
Hey, no worries at all. All right, man. Well, hit me up. Let's see. Where should we start? What do you want to know here?
Well, you've had a great bunch of releases so far to kick off this year. You closed out last year with a great bunch. What do you have coming up right now?
Let's see. Well, the Wicked Mariah Cycles reissue. I've been wanting that for quite a while, and I love that album. And we're going to do the Majestic demos with that. It was a kind of the band, their pre-stuff.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
They kind of sounded more like Overkill back then.
They did. Completely different band than the Cycles record.
And I thought the Cycles was really good, man. Although I gotta say I agree with people when they mentioned something about the cover, because when I first found that album, I found it in a pawn shop. I thought it was like a Skinny Puppy album or some kind of industrial stuff.
That's what it looked like.
And it turns out it wasn't. To me, I listened to it. I was like, oh my God, this would have been the like, if Strange and Beautiful never happened, this should have been the Crimson Glory album that went into the 90s.
Wow. Isn't it crazy how a cover can make such a difference on what you think the music would be or might be?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I look at it now, and I've seen a few people mention the possibility of a new cover, and Falco even asked me that, and I thought, no, we should stick with the original cover, and because I don't know, it fit with what it was. I mean, it was progressive. It was something new, It wasn't that Cycles album is not derivative of anything that was coming before it,
True.
So I think that cover kind of worked in that way. I mean, it was kind of like seeing Nevermore covers going into the 90s. Nevermore had a sound now that we hadn't heard previously. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But, with a lot of your releases, you have changed or altered to come up with completely new covers for some of your band's records. I mean, is that something that you feel you needed to do, or was it the band recommended it to you and you kind of maybe came to an agreement on it?
That comes about various ways, and it's strange because some people will ask, they'll talk about and mention new artwork, and then other people will bitch about it if we do new artwork. There's no pleasing people.
That's true.
You can't please them all. The various ways it comes about is sometimes, you get this self-release cassette tape, and that cover, it's just not going to work. It's not going to translate well on the squared up image. Sometimes the original artwork just doesn't exist anymore. Sometimes there never was original artwork. This band we have coming out right now, and I can't mention who the name is. Well, I'll tell you this later. But this band, like the tape cover, it's really goofy. I will say that. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, should we do new artwork or should we stick with this? And I asked the guitar player, I said, why did you do this cover, because of the image that's on the cover? And he said, hey, how do I explain this story without giving away who the band is?
It's hard because somebody will take
Yeah,
a guess and get it.
is. Because I actually was going to give a hint, a clue to who the band was, too, for whoever might be clever enough to look it up. But needless to say, the cover is really cheesy and goofy. And I asked the guy, I was like, look, the creature you put on your cover has nothing to do with the name of the band or anything. Why didn't you do this on the cover? And he comes back and he says, that's because we couldn't draw a cool one. And I was like, okay, well, fair enough. Oh man, I don't know, man. We've done stuff like Arcanum, man. I got into this debate with this girl over the Arcanum logo because they had two different logos that they used.
Yeah.
One, in the earliest days, the logo was kind of this kind of generic, derivative-looking, thrashy, deathy-looking logo that everybody used in 1988. And then later, the band changed the logo. It was more unique looking, and it was like the one we have on the release. Well, that was the one that they predominantly used the most. It was the one that they liked the most, and it was more fitting to what that band evolved into anyway. But this girl I was arguing with, she's like, yeah, but that first one's the original logo. And I'm like, was it though? Or was it just something they doodled in math class or doodled on a flyer because they really didn't have a logo?
Yeah.
And I don't know. But again, you can't please everyone. They're always going to have complaints. I mean,
you can't please nobody in this world anymore. I mean, even even you and I do two different things. I do a show and I look for all these underground bands that people forgot about, and you do the same thing with your label. You come up with all these obscure bands that people forgot about. And we kind of both do the same thing in a way, but it's completely different. But we both deal with bands, and I have to tell you, I've had some of the bigger names. I have Rob Halford on the show. I've had all the guys of Slayer on the show. I've had Queensryche. I've had a lot of the big bands on here, and I never had an issue with any of the bigger bands. I'm like, you want to come on the show Sunday the 15th at 6 o'clock? Okay, I'll talk to you then. They call up on time. They're professional about the interview. We deal with a lot of these underground bands, and it seems like they've all come off as prima donnas, most of them. That you can't do this, you can't do that. I got to get back to you. I got to let you know. I mean, you deal with that more than me because you got to put contracts together. I'm just trying to get somebody to talk to. You got to deal with the whole business part of it. I mean, isn't it crazy when you hear about some of these bands like, you haven't done anything in 40 years. You did one thing back then. People loved it, but nobody knows who you are anymore. And you got to, you know what I'm talking about. It's crazy with the attitude you deal with. And then you get some people that are just golden with everything. They're like, oh yeah, absolutely, whatever you want. Sure, I love it.
I have always said this in jest, but maybe it's kind of true. I don't know that one day I would write a tell-all book, and I will not change names to protect the stupid.
Don't.
I mean, it's just, but I feel once I do, I have to make damn sure I don't want to do this anymore because people are going to hate me more than they already hate me
done.
now. And because it's just been like so much. There's just the barrage of stuff that you deal with and you see from people. I'm trying I'm trying right now to pull one up in my head, a good one,
yeah.
But it's just so much, and and these guys, they play this up like, well, for one, they always know how things work. They will always know that. Okay, let me, for instance, throw you the one of like when we're working on like cover art, since we just came from that, and graphic arts. Like, I'll have these guys, they'll all tell me how they were this or that, or they're a graphic artist, or they can do this and so forth. And I'm like, okay, then you should know what I need. So as I'm telling them what I need, and I need them to send to me, the faster they are to answer me and tell me, oh yeah, we know, that just means they're going to mess up.
Yeah.
Because they never know. They always do. The ones who listen to me, regardless if they know if I don't need to say it to them or not, they're the ones that are going to get it right. But But there are always these guys who will speak up and like, oh yeah, we know how it works and what we got to do. But they'll be always the ones that'll screw up.
True.
And it's like what the ego there, man. It's nuts.
It's a crazy. I mean, what made you decide? I mean, nobody does anything in the music business for money because it's almost impossible to make any money doing this. What got you started? Wanting to do this and create a label and start releasing music. And did you have a game plan back then? Because like over the years, you've focused so much on Pennsylvania and North Carolina. I think those bands owe you a humongous debt because you brought a lot of them back. Some of them, are back playing together again today. And you really focus a lot on those two states. I mean, you've got music from all over, but was there a goal from the beginning of what you wanted to do with this label?
Absolutely not. Dude, I started singing in bands when I was like 14. That's kind of what I wanted to do, and it never worked. Ironically, I know enough musicians now it could work, but And when I started all of this, I knew a few local bands at home that were going to self-release their albums. And anyone that self-release knows how it works. You just end up with a lot of stuff in your closet many years later down the road. And the thing was, I just knew a few people, had a few connections. So I said to these guys, like, let's put this out, and I'll put this name on it and I'll get them into distribution for you. And at that time, my connections were limited. The Twisted Tower Dyer that helped open a lot more up. But and so this is just when we were starting with these kind of active bands. I mean, hell, Pretorius, man, I love those guys to death. And that album cover, the charm of it has grown on me over the years. But I remember I didn't see that album cover till their CD release show, and I was like, oh damn, what have I got myself into? And if you've seen their album cover, you know what I'm talking about. It's like, okay. And then when we, but that stuff, man, I mean, those first few releases, those bands essentially self-released that stuff themselves. I just had the distribution outlets. So then after that, we started to contract bands, and which is Mark came out and Seventh Calling and Core Device. And I'm not going, you got to wait for the book to get the stories behind a couple of those guys. But, but anyway, so that's then we went into the reissues, and the reissues were kind of the only thing that kind of paid for itself, would help get to the next project, the only stuff that was working. And of course, being the collector guy, that was worked with my own interests there. So then we started doing those, and then just started digging more up. I focused more on North Carolina because I was from North Carolina. Yeah. So we focused a lot on PA when Gary came about. 9 years into the label. Well, Gary, Pennsylvania was his state, and he knew a bunch of bands up here. To go back for a second, what actually helped evolve the label was I was working with a filmographer I know down in North Carolina, and we were going to put together this documentary about like North Carolina hard rock and metal bands. I had names traced back to the 70s. Wow. And as I started talking to these bands, I even had built a metal archives type website just on North Carolina bands at one point. This was many, many years ago. But as I kept working on this and kept contacting these bands, I kept finding like they just didn't give a shit. No one was into this idea. I'm like, really? North Carolina had some rich stuff going on, and certainly when you look outside into other genres. I mean, hell, when Seattle was big, I remember Rolling Stones had an article saying, North Carolina, Chapel Hill area would have the next big music scene. Well, obviously that didn't happen, but still people were kind of saying, yeah, we think something's going to happen over there. But so as as we're trying to do the, planning out this documentary and thing, and I'm finding none of these bands or anyone really seems to care. Well, that's kind of when the label was started, right around that time. Well, then I found that people in North Carolina didn't really seem to care about that either.
Oh God.
Yeah, this whole support the local scene stuff, man, it's such a facade. But it's like, but man,
It's
I'm
all
being too
talk on the
cynical.
computer, but that's all it is. When it actually comes down to
Yeah,
reality,
it is.
it doesn't
because
happen.
Yeah, because that guy on his computer, like, support the local scene, that guy on Friday and Saturday night sitting at home on his computer.
That's right.
He's not out watching those bands, Like, but so as these releases were coming out, and we started dealing with people in Europe and so forth, I was like, these were the people that were interested, and it just goes to show with the bands too. I mean, take Listed Tower Dyer, for instance, man. They're going to Europe. All these people love this band, so forth. They're doing all these tours, but at home they're playing in front of 5 or 10 of their drunken buddies.
It's true.
And I know because I was at all those shows.
You were number 9.
Yes, exactly. But so I was just like, all right, fine, North Carolina, and I just started looking other places. When I came here to Pennsylvania did kind of embrace us a little bit more, and then going back, I might be jumping around here, but Gary Schaefer, like I had known that guy since, like, I don't know, sometime in the 90s, but I only knew him as an online dealer. I didn't meet him face to face till many years later, but when I talked to him, he asked me about how the label was, and we just kept talking. And he said if he had ever done another release, which he had already done a previous one, a Funny Money album, he said he was looking for this band Excalibur. And I said, well, it just so happens I'm looking for them too. And well, you know how all that went down.
Yeah. Found the guy's daughter.
Total props and credit to you because you helped.
Yeah.
I mean,
But that's what you have to do. If you want something out there, you got to, make it happen.
Yeah, and they were difficult to get a hold of. Now, of course, Gary and I, we did Assassin together first, but when we did those, I just like, do you want in on this full time? And he was like, yeah. So that's where we're at now.
And I always say every time, you always throw me interviews with your guests. We help try to promote the records. And, when I look back at, like, the guests we've had on here that you've put records out by, sometimes they're so varied. I mean, from Left Wave to Maddox to Mere Mortals. I mean, you do go all over the place musically. It's rock and metal, but you don't, like, stick to one format. You kind of like, is it just like, hey, you know what? I'm interested in this right now. The Roll Hell, what a great band. I mean, I never heard it until you guys put them out. I was like, these guys are amazing. This, it's a great way of finding new bands when you work with them, and yet, reliving the old ones again too.
I mean, it all came down to my interest. I mean, okay, I'll be straight up. The ones that appeal to me the most personally, those aren't the ones that do the best for us. Go figure. But I don't know.
That's what happens.
But it's like, I'm a huge death rock, goth rock fan. I have been for years. I'm sure you've maybe even seen there's a Facebook when I was pretty and wore eyeliner and smoked clove cigarettes. but bands like Bauhaus and Sisters of Mercy, I love that stuff. So we did this band, Morticia from Minnesota, all 3 of their 80s goth rock albums. I don't even know if there's an audience out there for that stuff anymore, but I loved those albums, and so I did it. When we did our 100th release, the Cerebellum, that was a thing I wanted to do even before I started. Why? Because I was afraid to play the demo tapes, because if those tapes snapped, that was it, no more.
Yeah.
And that band I saw at my very first club show, it was them. It was Cerebellum, a band called them, Toxic Popsicle and Confessor. And man, I fell in love with Cerebellum. Oh, I saw them so many times. And no, they don't fit the if we have a typical mold, they don't fit it, man. They sound like Jesus Lizard, Soundgarden, Black Flag, maybe early Clutch, Helmet.
But it was a good
But
record.
it was also 1991. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
But if you look at that whole CD, man. I mean, that whole thing, like the cover on it, it's the outside of the Fallout shelter, which was basically our CBGBs, if you will, in Raleigh, North Carolina. The inside of it, you see the band playing live, and that whole audience is full of everyone I knew at that time. My girlfriend, when I was 16, she's sitting on the stage. The bass player, my first band, he's in that pit. I'm in that pit, and that release meant a hell of a lot to me. And just because I wanted those songs on disc.
Hey, if you can't put out what you like when you own your own label, I mean, what's the point of having a label?
Yeah.
But then the Rotisserie came out not long after that. Something that I wouldn't have expected from you guys, and that was like in
What
between
was
Cerebellum. The Rotisserie came out. That came out
I
after.
still not understand what you're saying.
No, I'm saying, you're talking about Cerebellum, but then another band that I wouldn't have expected from the label was when you put the Rotisserie record out, and that was right before the Morticia records.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just what appeals. I mean, Gary brought the band Ask a Stranger we did. Gary brought that to my attention. I didn't know them. They were a band from here, and those dudes, they reminded me of Toto, and I love Toto. And I was like, sold, I'll do it. And it actually did pretty well. Now, okay, let's jump back here. There was one. Now, when that came out, there are 7 members in that band. When that thing came out, the drummer was like ecstatic over it, and he was the only one I heard anything more from. The guitar player is the one I'm mostly dealing with. The bass player steps up, who he did the cover artwork, and we wanted to stick with the original artwork. And this dude was a graphic designer, so he wanted to do the layout for it. And he starts working on it, and I'm like, this is not right. This is not working. So I let my graphics guy look at it, and he says, man, I'm going to be honest with you. This looks like a guy's first project taking a Photoshop class at the community college. And I'm like, yeah, it does. So I went back to the bass player and I said, look, dude, I'm just going to put my guy on this. This is not heading the right direction. He got really pissed. I actually thought this would end the whole thing. Well, then the guitar player calls me and he says, well, we signed the agreement, so we're going to do it. So we did it, and boom. So they get their stuff. I don't hear anything else from them. Not another word, except from the drummer, who is just like, oh, my God, this is awesome. Well, so then one day, I have to make a call, and I mistakenly hit the guitar player's number. But since I had him there, hadn't talked to this guy now in like a year, I said, well, man, what did you think of the release? And he just paused for a moment, and he said, well, it's not what I would have done with it. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like, I saw what you did with it in 94. This little 4-panel booklet, so forth. I mean, it wasn't the worst, like, self-release I had ever seen, but I had your material remastered. I think we might have bonus tracks on it. I gave you a 20-page booklet. I wrote up something about your band so where people will know you existed. I mean, it's full of photos, all of this, but it's not what you would have done. Like, seriously? I'm like, all right, dude, whatever, man. You can't satisfy everyone.
It doesn't even pay to try. I mean, I know a couple of the upcoming releases that you got because we talked about it in private, and I'm not going to mention them until you're ready to release it. But the 3 latest ones, I guess, is going to be Taz, Waxwing, and April Fool, right?
Yeah, April Fool just got backed up a little bit. We had an issue taking on a new designer earlier this year. That caused some issues, but the April Fool and Taz are actually shipping now. I'll drop a couple of names. There was a band of the Luftwaffe I might have already told you about this,
Yeah.
but the Luftwaffe, the singer of Luftwaffe and Mere Mortal, he went on down to like I think New York City, and he got into another band. Dude, it is so proggy. My wife told me she listened to it. She says this will be my favorite thing you have put out on this label, but you will
Wow.
not sell a single damn copy.
Oh, at least she's honest with you.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, oh boy, but we're gonna try it anyway. I mean, it's like we're looking at like I don't know if I threw out names, I would say of 90s to now names, I would throw out Pain of Salvation, Mr. Bungle, but I would also say Vandergraaf Generator and maybe some odd Ball King Crimson.
All
I
right,
mean,
that's
it's really
a mix.
proggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've also said for those who have heard Luftwaffe, I would say if you take away any song structure from Luftwaffe, that's what it is. It's just that weird. It's like what did Frank Zappa have to do with this?
Yeah, but it sounds interesting. I mean, sometimes you got to roll the dice and see how it goes and stuff like that. You might be surprised.
Oh, I mean, indeed. But I've also found like it's like I don't know, man. There's also a trick on how you have to see. These are things where I have to watch what I say, but what the hell I'm going to say it anyway. I mean, it's like sometimes when you're putting out the band, if you say the wrong thing, it scares people off. For instance, like if they're reading the press release about the band, they see a couple of names you know that maybe in comparison to, but you mention like, but they kind of have this punkish edge. Well, then that suddenly will scare off the Manowar fan.
Yeah.
Because, oh, no, punk rock, or whatever. And you wouldn't think that mentality would exist these days, but it still does.
Oh, absolutely. Everything's so, I want to say genre specific today. Get a little tongue-tied over there, but it's true. If you mention one thing that turns somebody off to something else, they won't even bother with it. That's kind of sad in a way because you're missing out on a lot of good stuff that way.
I agree. We also we're working on this doom band from upstate New York called 137, and now they've put out a handful of self-release stuff and everything. And I saw these guys back in the early 2000s a couple of times, and I really dig their stuff. So that's going to happen. And again, that's still getting into an area where we're not sure what we can do with doom bands. I love doom metal. It's just, it's so strange, Mike, man. I mean, it's like traditional metal, not a problem. Hairband AOR stuff, not a problem. But if I start coloring out of the lines, getting into a death band, a doom band, or some off-the-wall prog thing, it's like, it's just like, yeah, it's hard for me to find that audience. That's
a shame too, because as a label, I mean, Metal Blade releases metal records. They have all kinds of genres of metal on there. Megaforce was the same way as the time went on. Nobody stood with the 80s metal in the 90s and the next decade, and labels have to be varied. And the audience should be there for the label, not just the specific genre that they're putting out.
That actually reminds me of a conversation years ago when Dennis Golby gave me some friendly advice. I say that a little facetiously. But he says, man, you need to decide like what genre and stuff you want to do and stick with that and focus on that. And at times I think maybe he was right, when I'm like, why isn't this title working? But then again, I grew up listening to Metal Blade stuff, and no two bands on Metal Blade were the same.
No.
They were all metal bands, but they weren't all the same. Bitch and Trouble were nothing alike. I mean, and it is just, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to do what I feel, and if it doesn't work, then what the hell? I have a very expensive CD in my collection. I mean,
that's the truth.
Like that Cerebellum,
That's right. Sitting behind the shelf.
I'm going to build a doghouse with the rest of them.
Oh God! Before I spoke to you, I had the band Boss Tweed on from the '80s, the Texas band. I love those guys. I was such a big fan of them, and I think it was Stormbringer that re-released a lot of their earlier stuff, probably 12 or 13 years ago. They're looking to get it out there again, like a new release, and they said they had a couple of songs that weren't out there. So I don't know if you're ever interested, but if you are, I'll put you in touch with them because I would love to hear
I
you do their stuff.
I will say I don't know them, but I'll definitely look into them because I've dug a lot of your recommendations and the things you've helped me out with. Matter of fact, the last one, not going to mention that name right now, but I'm sure you know what it is.
Yeah.
But what I thought was cool is those guys have actually called me up to keep following up on things.
That's
and,
good.
And that's another thing that gets difficult here, man. I have to keep knocking on their door. And it's just like that's how much interest that they show. They're like they often expect I already have everything in hand and they can do this. And yeah, they don't mind seeing it happen, but it's not a priority to anybody. And it's just like, really, it's just, I don't know. I mean, when we did New York, from South Carolina, go figure. But that the singer, when I contacted him, he said, and I quote, "Dude, that was then, this is now. I'll send it to you. You do whatever you want." I'm like, really?
That's rare when you find that.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that from a few people. But then again, here's a hilarious one for you. So there's this band here in PA, kind of melodic rock band. They put out, I don't want to drop their name, but they put out an album in like '89 and I think one in '90. Pretty good stuff, kind of like Hurricane maybe. And I know a lot of people want these albums. These albums, the original CD will fetch over $100 now if you find it. They come up a lot in forums, and people tag me all the time saying, "Why don't you look into this to reissue it?" Well, I did. Well, so one day I call up the singer. This was years ago now. Call up the singer, and I'm talking to him, and he says, "Well, man, we really want a label that's going to focus on our new stuff." Okay. A lot of them tell me this. Well, I know what their new stuff is. Their new stuff is like Nickelback Shine Down stuff. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I tell this guy, I said, "Well, look, man, we could reissue those first two albums. Whatever PR's done could give you kind of a springboard and stuff to start pushing your new stuff." Now, that potential is definitely there. I know that most people will not still be interested in the Shinedown stuff, but whatever. But it's still the opportunity. So the guy turns around and he says, "Yeah, you're right. That could work." So they come back to me. He talks to the band. They come back and they say, "Okay, we're going to do this." I'm like, excellent. So a year goes by, Mike. A year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have not heard from these goobers. And we tried to get back in touch with them and never did. So year goes by, I try again. Well, the singer says to me, he says, "Oh, we got stuff to send to you guys." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, you've been holding a contract all this time. I have to now redate it," so forth. He says, "Okay, well, I'll get that out, tomorrow." Well, now another month goes by. So we're now a month and a year behind the first contact. So then the next month goes by. I contact him again. He says, "Okay, I'll send it out tomorrow." Okay. Tomorrow comes and I get a text. And the text reads this. I'm not quoting verbatim, but it says, "The band and I and our lawyers, we got together and discussed this, and we decided not only do we want a label that's going to focus on our new material, but we think this is a scam."
Oh, God.
And I'm just like, wait a minute. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is how all these dudes always have a team of, like, attorneys on retainer.
Shit,
That one struck me funny. Yeah. But then the next thing, it's like a scam? Like, what the hell, dude? It's not like you're sitting on like rare Beatles recordings I'm trying to get off of you. It's kind of like, I'm going to take the gamble here, and it may work, it may not work. It's like you're being offered something, and it's just like whatever. And And obviously, the guy could easily look me up and see it's legit. But, but whatever. So, but this band, oh, they're still rock stars in their little Pennsylvania town, playing covers and shine down sounding stuff.
It's just
I don't know.
crazy. This whole business is crazy. I tell you, I give you credit for dealing with what you got to deal with. We talk and you tell me your stories. I'm like, I don't know if I'd have the head to do that because sometimes, in the '80s, I played in a hardcore band called Stillborn. We recorded like 3 or 4 demo tapes back then. Even though the scene died out, we died out with it. And like 30 years later, I get an email from some guy saying, I got your number and your text and wanted to know if I could re-release those demo tapes. I said, yeah. I sent them over all the reels we had, all the cassettes we had, because I'm going to send you over a contract, and we could agree upon a certain amount. I said, I don't want any money. I said, when you put it out, just give me a couple of CDs or a couple of records, so I give out to my friends and family. That's all I wanted. It was so simple and easy. Like, I remember years later, he goes, you were the easiest person I ever had to deal with putting out these re-releases of all these old hardcore bands. I'm like, I was just thrilled that somebody remembered us. They wanted to put something out there and make it sound better than it did back then, which was kind of hard because it was kind of shitty too. But I was like so happy about that. And I'm like, I don't get when bands give label owners such a hard time about releasing stuff that's so far back in the past. They haven't done anything with it in decades. Just give it to them. Let them do what they want. I mean, just to put it up on my wall, I'm so happy. And he shipped me out he shipped me out like 400 copies of this record. I had to go find the other guys in my band, so I give them 100 copies each to get rid of them.
Dude, I've had bands, like, I've done projects with bands, and they're like, oh, okay, so can we order some or buy some from you? And I'm like, no, dude, you're going to get some.
Yeah.
It's like, I've had some guys who are like, we don't want anything. It's like, it's just cool you want to do this. Some of the bands, I mean, the Cerebus guys, dude, it took, being from North Carolina, I knew those guys and stuff. It took about 7-8 years to finally talk them into this.
Yeah.
And I mean, and what was strange, is like, Scott, he played in bands with Jim Hunter from TDD, and Jim would come back and he would tell Scott about how, like, Germany would flip out when I would tell them I'm in a band with you, and they all want Cerebus back and so forth. And so all this would happen over years, Meanwhile, I'll see Scott at a record show. I'm like, Scott, we really need to do this Cerebus stuff. Well, eventually it came about.
Yeah.
And, and they went to keep it true. And I remember when he came back, he said, I talked to him and he said, yeah, it was like you said it would be and more, man. He said, everywhere I turned, it was just more people asking me to sign a record.
Amazing,
like,
right?
Well,
That's a great story. Yeah. Oh, man.
And that one, it worked out. But then you take people like, George from Overlord, like, he asked me once, he says, how do you know all of this about these people and this scene and stuff? And I'm like, because I'm one of them. That's how I know it.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's so weird with the various attitudes. You have 80s guys, especially with the hair guys, the melodic rock, hair rocker, cock rock dudes. Like, those are the most difficult ones to deal with because, like, those dudes are waiting for the second coming of Jovi. They think it's going to happen again. And they're all balding. They all have, like, 50 to 100 pounds of, like, beer gut. But they all think they're still that pretty 19-year-old and they're going to make it. And it's just like, it's not happening, man. It's just not. This one cat I talked to, and again, I don't want to drop any names of bands, but so I talked to this guy. They had put out a self-released album back in, I don't know, 84 maybe it was, just self-released, only released on vinyl. And then they got signed to a major after that. That second album didn't do much, blah, 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 and then they were just kind of forgotten. Well, I contacted the guitar player, and I said, I really, really want to reissue this album. And he's telling me, he says, well, I think Warner Rhino owns that album. And I said, why would they possibly own that album? That was the first self-released album. They've never done anything with it. But but he still kind of thinks they own that because they would technically own that second one. Well, so as we keep talking about this, well, he hasn't talked to the singer in 20 years. So he decides to call the singer up, finds out that the singer passed away 2 weeks before he called.
Oh, okay.
So I'm still talking to this dude. Well, then this dude tells me, he's like, well, I'm getting the recordings for the third album that we did with Gene Simmons. And I'm like, oh. And I tell him, I said, look, I will reissue the first album, and I will do that third unreleased album of the Simpsons stuff, or the Gene Simmons recordings. He goes on to keep telling me that I need to talk to Warner. And I'm like, why the fuck do I need to talk to Warner? I'm not going to get past the first receptionist, much less to the second one. And and the odds are they don't remember your name anyway, or your master's burned up in that fire years ago, or whatever. And then he says to me, he says, well, I don't want to ruin my relationship with Warner. And I'm just like, all right, dude, whatever. It's because it's like, yeah, dude, you're in your mid-60s. Warner isn't going to one day think, that guy might be our next big thing.
Let's go back to that. Let's go dig up that file somewhere and go back to it. It's true, but this is the attitude people have, or the mentality that they have.
Yeah. No. So the album I wanted to reissue, I do have a bootleg CD of it. I got like 23 years ago, and I'm telling this guy about it because I'm telling him all the extra stuff that's on it. And he says, how did they get those tracks? Those were recorded for our third album. I'm like, I don't know, but they're on here. And then he says, how do you know it's a bootleg? Maybe they licensed it. And I'm looking at it in hand as I'm talking to him. I'm like, no, dude, honestly, I kind of think I might even know who did it. Because the work looks very familiar.
Yeah.
And it's like, but that just goes to show they have no idea what's going on. It's just, but so this dude, he actually did. So that reissue of that first album didn't happen, but that third one, he did go to someone else and have it done, and he went to some label with piss poor distribution that had all the the hair band has been guys. It's like they're all over there like, well, here was this guy who played in this LA band. He put out an album and whatever. And I'm just like, all right, dude, fair enough.
It is what it is.
And but it is, oh man, it's a crazy thing. I've rounded up to 20 years of doing this, and it's just the things that have come about and stuff. I mean, you might have seen a meme I threw up on Facebook of a guy peeking out behind blinds.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I get that idea when I call these bands up. like I wonder if these guys are just sitting at home with tinfoil hats, like,
oh God,
why is someone calling me up asking about an album I recorded 40 years ago? And it's like, there's a band up in Pittsburgh, well, a couple up in that way I'm working on. One of them, there's two surviving members left, the two guitar players. And one of them wants to do it. The album's never been released. They only released a 7-inch. That's been bootlegged a few times. But the album, it's like the one guitar player wants it, but the other one does not. And then somehow there's a wife that got involved.
Oh, that's the worst.
And so the one, yeah, oh, definitely. And anytime a wife or a girlfriend shows up involved in it, it's just going to screw everything up. It just happens. I mean, and but the one guitar player that wants it, he went to the other one's house, and the wife answered the door and said he's not interested, and just slammed the door in his face.
Oh,
I'm like,
God.
all right, wow. Another group I'm looking for up there, this was a crazy one. They put out one 7-inch in 1980. And as far as I know, they weren't in the Pittsburgh scene, really. They just were a band that just put out a 7-inch. So I'm looking for this band. I have a hard time finding this band. One night I'm talking to Charlie from Holocross, and Charlie's like, dude, I was in that band.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, well, yeah, for a little while. And Charlie, he goes, they sound like that band, that, you know, the band with the flute. And I'm like, Jethro Tull? And he's like, yeah, they sounded like Jethro Tull. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not what the 7-inch sounds like.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever. So I have now located 2 of the members of this group. And one of them, I ended up having to try to contact them through the wife. The wife did respond to me, and she said, yeah, he was in that band a long time ago. And I'm like, could you have him contact me? Sure. Give me your contact info. I do. Never hear anything. Contact the other guitar player, and he responded once. And he's like, yeah, what do you want to know? And then as I'm going into it, he's looking and reading every other message, but he just won't get in touch with me. And I'm just like, all right.
It's hard to figure people out. It's, you know, I go through that with interviews too. Like, they respond right away to me. Yeah, I'd love to be in your show. 4 years later, I haven't heard back from them. No matter how many times I get back to them on it, it happens, you know. It's just, it's nutty. But Jeremy, I got to let you go, man, because I didn't realize almost 8:30. We got about 5 minutes left, and they're going to cut us off. So I want to play at least one more song.
Right.
I want to play Lady Killer because I haven't played them in a long time on the show. You did a great job on that release, but I promise I will call you next week off air so we can talk about our Migo and our other stuff, because I'm bad with that.
Nice.
By the time my grandkids leave here, there's usually 2 or 3 of them here at any day of the week. I'm exhausted. By 6 o'clock at night, I'm crashing on the couch, and then I'm dragging myself up to bed with the wife.
I was telling my wife the other day, it's like Mike just mentioned to me something about his grandkids, and I replied back, so did you get your amigos in?
I did get them, yes. I did get them. But I'll give you a call this week to go over all that.
Oh, a quick side thing real quick.
Yeah.
There's possibly a Lady Killer EP. I was just looking at it the other day. I've had it for years, but so it could possibly be a thing.
That'll be great. We'll get Terry back on the show to talk all about that.
Nice. All right, man. Well, it's been fun and stuff.
You got it, buddy. I'll talk to you this week, I promise.
All right.
I got one day I'm not babysitting. I'll have the energy to pick up the phone and call you.
Excellent, man.
All right, Jeremy. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
What a great guy Jeremy is. I thought he wanted to talk on air last week when I was talking. He goes, if you got nothing going on next week, I'll call you. But I didn't really mean off the air. But, it is what it is. It's always great to catch up with Jeremy and his label and everything going on. Let's play some Lady Killer for everybody right now. Hey, don't forget to tune in. I want to thank all the guys from Boss Tweed for being on tonight's show. I want to thank Scott, Donny, and Lance. Next week, my good friend Lee Payne from Clovenhoof is on the show. We're actually going to have to pre-record that one day during this week because the time difference is a little too late over there. So don't forget to tune in next week for an interview with Lee Payne from Clovenhoof. Let's do some New York metal for you right now. Lady Killer, you got me running. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday.
Running, girl, I'm hiding from you. You got me backing up a step or 2. I know you're wondering when I'm gonna give in. You've been waiting a long time, girl. No one plays with me in bed. You got me running. You got me running. I think it's time that we ended this game. And I have a feeling you feel the same. You think you know what classics and gals do? Well, girl, you know that I'm through with trying to get into you. You got me running. You got me running. Take my fast leave and don't come back. Nothing here is left for you. Turn around, girl, don't come back. When I'm gonna get in, you'll be waiting Now that you fulfilled your fantasies, better run, stay far away from me. You tell me I never wanna be seen again. Well, let me tell you, baby, I do. I never